Good afternoon and welcome to Deepblocks weekly webinar. My name is Michael Cavone. I'm your Chief Revenue Officer of Deepblocks, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us today as we explore Atlanta, Georgia, and we'll be looking at a specific listing in Atlanta. We're going to evaluate the market around Atlanta, look at some of the data layers and map layers that we can overlay on this particular site, review the different scenarios and the different development plays that we can try to optimize this particular site, and go through some financial scenarios and what if scenarios. But before we begin, I'm just going to give a few more minutes to let some more people join and participate today. But any time during the webinar you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat and ask a question. You can always email me as well at the end of the webinar, michael@deepblocks.com, if you have any additional questions. Again, feel free during the webinar to send me any questions if you want to go back and review a specific functionality, or you want to discuss a certain topic, whatever it may be. In the meantime, as we wait again a few more minutes to let some more people join, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at the different sections of Deepblocks' website. As you notice right now, this is our city section of Deepblocks, and this represents all the cities that we currently have zoning data in, as well as parcel level data. All the red dots indicate all the cities we have zoning. Currently, we have zoning for 43 cities. We'll be adding another 50 plus cities coming in the next couple of weeks. We additionally have over 1,000 plus cities with parcel level data. We're constantly increasing and scaling out the number of cities that we have zoning and parcel level data. And in addition to that, we also have market data. So we have construction costs, different type of market rates, opportunity zones, demographic information, and we just show a tremendous amount of information in various markets throughout the country. And again, a lot of our map layers, like I said, opportunity zone rates, they actually apply throughout any state and any city really in the country. It's not really predicated based on the zoning. Certain layers are predicated on zoning, so those will only appear if we have zoning data. But for the most part, most of our map layers do work in any city throughout the country. With that being said, we also have our webinar section. This will basically showcase, and you can see all the past webinars in recent weeks. We also have our tutorials. So here's our webinar section. Let's see, last week we did Nashville. Our tutorial section is a great resource. We upload 60-second videos to showcase key functionalities for the website and for Deepblocks. It's just a really great place to really, again, get a better understanding of certain functionalities. If there's new features we have, we'll upload tutorials here. Lastly, we have our pricing, which currently is at $18,000 per year for our annual subscription. And again, this is actually a great time to sign up if you can subscribe to Deepblocks, as we're only going to become more and more expensive as we continue to add and scale out to more cities with zoning. So we'll probably be at $36,000 by the end of the year. So if you get in now at $18,000 per year, you'll be grandfathered into that price for life. So that is, again, a great opportunity and a good chance to get in. As I mentioned, if this is your first time joining us at the Deepblocks webinar, or if you've come before, as you may or may not know, with Deepblocks, what we do is we converge various different types of data sets, from zoning data, parcel level data, market data, and it's all into one centralized piece of software. The software is kind of broken into two different interfaces. The front end module is our market scanner. It allows you to kind of scan at a high level and very efficiently go through thousands and thousands of parcels and you can refine your search based on certain criteria and narrow that search from thousands and thousands of parcels just to a handful and quickly find the most optimal site to develop on. In addition, you can then go into a more of a micro level and evaluate these different markets and look at the data layers that we provide in these map overlays to see median income, median rent, different demographic information. We show, again, different rates, residential rates, office rates, industrial rates, various types of costs. So it's just a real impactful tool to expedite your process. And before Deepblocks came along, everything was very fragmented. You had to go to different locations or work with different softwares or different individuals to piece everything together. With Deepblocks, it's all streamlined into one interface. And into one platform. And then once you select that parcel that seems to be the most optimal based on your criteria, you can then do a preliminary underwriting for any type of use. It may be multifamily, retail, office, or mixed use. And our second module, our backend interface, the Explorer, will allow you to go through and run through financial scenarios and what if scenarios. And again, in a matter of minutes, you can really truly evaluate the most optimal play on particular sites. So with that being said, we're now going to jump into my dashboard, and we're going to start our we're going to search for this particular listing that's in Atlanta, Georgia, and we are going to go through various scenarios to see what is the most optimal development play for this particular listing. So I'm going to grab the address, and the listing is 140 Pine Street Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm going to go to my search engine. And again, just always keep in mind, Deepblocks works in one of two ways. We can go through a broad search and go through thousands and thousands of parcels and enter criteria to refine our search to find a particular site. Or you can, if you have addresses in mind, you can enter in these addresses and start looking at these sites and evaluating the sites right from that point as well. I'm going to enter the address in 140 Pine Street, Northeast. In Atlanta. There it is. Pops up. We're going to hit search engine. And right now, what our program is identifying that location. There you see it's represented with this red dot. But before we kind of jump into that particular parcel, I just always like to quickly review the front end interface. Again, this is our market scanner or our search engine. As I mentioned, our software is broken into two different interfaces. This is that front end interface. And just to quickly kind of review the sections, here's our tools section, which allows you to search. And right now we're kind of in a more of a grid-like view, but we can turn on a satellite layer. And I'll demonstrate the satellite layer shortly when we kind of really go into a more micro level and zoom into the actual property. This is our select parcel tools, allows you to select one parcel at a time. Here's our assemblage tool. You can select more than one parcel and do go through an evaluation of more than one parcel. So if you want to kind of evaluate all these parcels in a row, we can select all of them at once and go through the preliminary underwriting process for an entire block, if that's what you are, that suits your needs. And we also have our draw a parcel tool. So this allows you to basically draw a parcel pretty much anywhere in the world, and then still utilize the software for the financial analysis and do the 3D modeling. In the United States, you can draw a parcel pretty much, again, it can be within the cities that we have zoning, but if say we do not have zoning in a particular city, you still can draw a parcel and evaluate that parcel in that city. And again, we do have market information that's pretty much represented throughout the country, so you can still evaluate a particular parcel, even if it's not in one of our cities with zoning. And additionally, you can then go through that 3D modeling and financial analysis. People also use, a lot of our clients like to use this draw parcel tool to also draw parcels within a larger parcel. So if you want to draw townhomes, you want to go through and show single family homes and build a little community, it just gives you some flexibility. And now we actually have a copy and paste feature now. So once you draw one parcel, you can then copy and paste those additional parcels. This is now our market scanner right here. This section down below, this kind of drives the search of this particular interface. You can search by zoning district. You can search by uses allowed. So we can actually put in, for instance, multifamily, and you'll see all the parcels come up. This is kind of where you do that broad search, where you could search through thousands and thousands of parcels, and really in a matter of minutes, kind of enter in criteria, narrow down those results to find those sites that, again, most suit your needs. And once you kind of have that list, you can export out to CSV a list of those properties, which will be provided in that list. And that CSV is the legal address, along with about 15 additional columns of data tied to those particular parcels. So again, a very powerful search engine right at your fingertips. And then lastly, we have our map layers, which I'm going to go through as we kind of evaluate this market for this particular parcel in Atlanta. So I'll go through some of those layers and as we speak and as we begin to look at this site. So as I mentioned, this is 140 Pine Street Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm going to click that parcel, and you'll notice when you select a parcel, our property info will come up for this particular property. You'll see some demographic information, some property info, some zoning information, and depending on the city we're in, depends on it will represent how much zoning data is provided. Certain cities provide much more extensive zoning information. This particular example is just limited amount of zoning information. You get your use allowed, use breakdown, and your setbacks, your parking requirements. So for this particular site, there is no spaces required, and there are no setbacks. But with that being said, let's kind of evaluate this particular area of Atlanta just to really understand our surroundings, understand, again, the market and some demographic information. One of the first buttons on our map layer is our general button. So I'm going to actually zoom out quite a bit. We're going to get more of a bird's eye in that macro level view of this particular area. We're going to turn on buildable area ratio. Now, any layer, any button in this map layer can be, you can go to the market scanner, go to our map legend, and look up how this data is sourced as well as how this data is represented. So buildable area ratios is just a potential for a parcel buildable area. And it's calculated using the maximum buildable square footage divided by the lot area. So it just gives you another type of measurement to really understand what can be built on particular sites. And again, it gives you a good idea of density in a particular city. So as you scroll out, we can really understand that the density for this particular part of Atlanta is where all this red is right here. And these pale yellow, it's not, density is not as high. So this is more of a focus based on if you're looking at buildable area ratio. So again, as I mentioned, anything that's in these map layers will be represented throughout the map legend. Now I'm going to go back to put my address back in. My street. Go. And that way we can just understand where that parcel is, which is right there, and continue to look at some of these additional map layers. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. We're going to go over to the demographic information in the people section. So basically, this is census data that we're pulling from the census data. Right now, it's from 2010 through 2018. We're currently working to retrieve the data through 2020 as the census releases it. So we can turn on median income, for instance, and what's going to happen is a heat map will appear and give you the breakdown of different median incomes throughout this part of Atlanta. So we're sitting at a $59,375 median income. We can also look at median rent just to get an idea of what type of median rents we could possibly charge. Looking at $1,264. We could look at employment. See that employment percentage is at 46%. So not the strongest, but not the weakest as either. So kind of right in the middle, and could be, again, these are just different ways of validating a particular site to see if it makes sense for this particular development. As well, we can look at some of the additional layers here, but I'm going to start zooming in and get more of, again, that micro level understanding of this particular area of Atlanta. And another one of our useful and very impactful layers are the residential. So if we're looking to do a multifamily play, we kind of want to understand some of the residential information. We have resi rates. So this is basically an aggregate of listing data, and then we apply our machine learning to bring a really strong baseline value of dollar per square foot that you can charge for leasing rates, or $1.90 per square foot. Some other useful information we'll go through is looking at retail. Sometimes you can see what kind of local businesses are in the area based on those orange dots. We could also look at traffic count, which is useful just to understand the traffic flow through a particular section of a city. And again, all these different color lines are explained underneath that map legend in the market scanner. But one thing I really want to kind of hone in on is some of these demographic trends. This is a really helpful tool to really understand the patterns we're seeing in a particular part of the city in different census tracts in certain cities. So the way our demographic trends work, you simply just put your mouse over these little boxes and they'll start to appear. And the shades of these colors will start to appear on your screen. That color purple is that census tract 18, and 19 is where our parcel is located. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to study the trends for 19. We can turn off 18 and 21, and now we kind of focus on this trend line. This is for population. So really strong incline, kind of flattened out in the last couple of years. We can look at employment per population. Again, we'll turn off 21 and 18, and we'll look at 19. Now, you'll see this is the United States trend line right here, and this is what the census tract 19 is, how it's performing over the last 8 years in relationship to the United States trend. So this employment per population has dropped quite a bit. It's still on a little bit of a decline, so it's something to consider. I mean, it was at 1.75%, now it's down to 46%. So again, these are just things to consider as you look at particular sites and understand the potential of a development. We do have a question. Under the zoning limits tab, it says in collaboration with TSW, please explain the collaboration part. Yes, good question. So if we go down the zoning limits, we can click it and it'll just bring up. So this is just pretty much a link to certain people that we kind of coordinate with and deal with when we're trying to put some of this information together and, as we organize. So when we kind of extract different data sets, we do partner with certain firms and certain companies that will help us with that extraction. So it's, and that's why we have it in collaboration with TSW. So it's just, again, it's kind of a partnership and a relationship that we work with them to help us out. So going back to these demographic trends, we also can look at median gross rent. Again, we're going to look at that census tract 19, and you'll see that the median gross rent is went up a little bit and kind of is flattened out in recent years. And lastly, you can look at median household income. We're going to turn off 21 and 18. Now this is showing a relatively strong incline versus the United States average, a little bit down in the last year. We have another question. Okay, no problem. Thank you for the question. So once we kind of, again, go through this different types of data sets and map layers and trends, as I mentioned, it's a way of evaluating everything in one centralized location on our software. And if you feel good about this particular parcel, the next step would really be is to go through the preliminary underwriting process and into that second interface where we can do 3D modeling and financial analysis and various what-if scenarios and see what the most optimal development type play for this particular parcel. So we're going to click preliminary underwriting. And here, again, you can select one use or multiple uses. So we're going to do, for this particular example, I'm going to do multifamily with retail. You'll notice it's pre-populated with the FAR based on this zoning. We'll hit continue. And right now the software, what it's doing is calculating based on zoning, market data. It's creating our 3D model and massing for this particular site. And what it'll do is it'll generate a massing that's 100% lot coverage at first, and based on that FAR. And then what we do is we provide you the tool sets to start adjusting this building. We can define the building as you see here, enter in setbacks, adjust the height, and then you'll go through adjusting the assumptions, which is the income and the cost side, looking at the parking as well. But before I kind of get into adjusting and define the assumptions and define the building, let's just quickly look at some of, again, the tool sets that we have in place. As I mentioned, we have a satellite layer. So I'm just going to show you real quickly. We'll turn that on. Just gives you a nice quick look, almost like a satellite overlay of just to understand the surroundings of this particular site as it loads. So you'll see the surroundings here in Atlanta of this particular site off Pine Street. In the additional tool set also, we have share project, copy project, and then obviously new project. Share project is extremely useful. So if there's multiple licenses within your company, you can share projects back and forth with your colleagues. So you can work on define the building, adjust the assumptions, share it with your colleague. He can then manipulate it, adjust them the way he sees fit. And you can just keep sending the project back and forth. Copy project gives you the ability to go through various iterations. So we could go through this iteration of a multifamily with retail with certain assumptions and setbacks in place, copy that project and go through, another iteration. Maybe it's multifamily with some office, maybe it's just multifamily, maybe enter in different assumptions for unit mix and kind of look at and evaluate that scenario. And the whole goal obviously is to see what type our ROC, which scenario is giving us the best return on cost. Does this particular site allow us to get a ROC that makes sense? So again, the main concept with Deepblocks is really to go through this site selection and optimizing your development play within really a matter of minutes. Instead of it taking sometimes weeks, months, coordinating with architects, consultants, or whatever it may be, you can do this all relatively quickly, efficiently, and accurately, which is the most important at your fingertips. So with that being said, again, we have our map layers here that are the same map layers that we were showing and looking at from the front end interface. But just to show you another interesting button right here is we have an existing building, so you can kind of see a 3D look of different existing buildings in the area. I'm going to turn the satellite layer off, go back to that grid view. So you can just kind of continue around the this particular interface. Here's our return analysis. This kind of does a breakdown, gross income, your OPEX, and then we can see our project costs and then finally our ROC. Just to keep in mind, this is a 1 year back of the envelope financial analysis. Lastly, we have our assumptions right here. So this kind of, it's all interactive. This is basically these numbers from the back of the envelope to the assumptions automatically update as you enter in different input values into these different fields from define, building, and adjust assumptions. So we have our property breakdown, the building areas, economics, and project costs. So just a little more detail for your assumptions right there. And lastly, here's your property info. This is basically the same info we were looking at in that front end interface, and just carries through here because you use this as a guide in a way of, as you kind of shape your building, you want to know the setbacks, the parking for this particular site. And as I mentioned earlier, there is no setbacks based on the zoning, and there's no parking required. But I still want to demonstrate how you can adjust this building, even though there's no setbacks required or parking. So one of the first things I'm going to show you is how we can adjust the parking. Now, most zoning will make you have parking requirements based on residential and retail. So for this particular example, I'm going to do 1 space for multifamily, and we're going to do 3 per 1,000 square feet for retail. And you'll notice the gray that pops up here on my screen will represent that parking, which shows up right underneath. There are times our clients will manipulate the setbacks to maybe they don't want parking underneath, maybe they're going to use open space around the building. So they'll create their setbacks so that they can put enough parking on the ground level and, again, not have to have it underneath the building. So it just depends on your preference, what you're trying to build on your end. We can do a parking reduction. I'm going to throw in 1%. And just to kind of show you that, actually, I'm going to make it 10%, just so you can see the difference. What happens is the building automatically adjusts based on entering that reduction. Let's go back to 0. All right, so then some of the next steps are we're going to go through our setbacks. And that way I can show you how the building will change as I enter in setbacks. I'm just going to move my model around. So as I mentioned, you can go into what's called our setback mode, and we can uniquely identify each side of the building so that we can adjust the setbacks differently for each side of the building. So this is going to be A. We're going to leave these as B. We're going to put it C. Across from C. This is going to be D. Lastly, this will be C. We do have another question. Who is the intended customer for Deepblocks? It's a very good question. So just to understand our client base, I would say the majority of our customers are private equity real estate funds, and that's at the current state we're in, as we have a national presence. Private equity real estate funds see the tremendous need for our software because you can do things at scale, and they'll work with the development divisions to basically use the software to go through, again, scenarios, or again, find the most optimal development play. And because they're in so many markets, they can quickly go through their portfolio and figure out and decide, make decisions at scale. And again, it's really about doing, not only using the software efficiently, but again, we have the fact that you can do this at scale and do it in volume. We do work with a lot of developers as well. Some of the bigger firms, again, those developers who have a national presence see a need for this. I will let you know that we do have the ability to, we're working on segmenting our software so it's based on market. So as we kind of localize and segment the software so you can focus on, say, just Miami, then we will draw more attention to certain types of players just in those particular markets. Just some individuals don't see the need for the national subscription. However, we are flexible right now. Even though we can't segment the software to just focus on one market, we do offer packages based on market. So if you're only in need for just one particular market, we can price per market. But otherwise, again, like I said, most of our users are at a national level and relatively larger funds because they need the power to use something of this sophistication and the ability to do it in volume. So as we're going to enter some setbacks in, just so I can show you how the setback mode works, we're going to start. Actually, you can put setbacks in at any floor. We're going to start from the 4th floor and up. The reason I'm starting from the 4th floor because you'll see our parking is the first 3 floors, and I want to kind of just focus my setbacks on the multifamily portion in green. So we're going to basically do a 77 feet there, and we're going to do for C 49 feet. And for D, 24. And you'll notice that, actually, let's make this 22. That's 40. And 5. All right. So you'll notice there's a little bit of gray right down below. So that means some of the parking's kind of overflowing into that 4th story. So what we can do is, and this is just kind of show you how you can manipulate the model. We can adjust that parking reduction, maybe make it 1%. And now you'll notice it's going to go down to this 3rd floor. But now you'll notice some of the multifamily showing up on the 3rd floor. So you can kind of start playing with the model to try to get the retail and parking just to be on the first 3 floors. And then from the 4th floor up, we just want the multifamily. And the ways to manipulate this, we can adjust the unit mix. We're going to do 100 units for each for 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. We're going to adjust. Let me go back to my setbacks, play with them a little bit. So you go back to that ground floor. We go back to 77 feet. See 49. All right. Now we can also adjust the gross buildable for each apartment. So we can make this 600. Maybe make this 900. Make this 1200. See if I go the other way. All right, another thing we can do is also adjust the retail and the gross buildable for the retail. So say we make this 14,000. Maybe we go up to 20,000. You'll notice that as you adjust, the retail gets bigger, it pushes your parking back a bit, and it allows it to start to get again, this is just to kind of show you how you can kind of manipulate your model to allow for the multifamily just to be from the 4th floor up. Another way to do it is also you can adjust your setbacks at the ground floor. So maybe put some setbacks down here, and you'll notice that. Let's see, go just 5 feet, and there we go. Now we kind of have it where just multifamily retail are on the ground floor. So after you kind of work on manipulating the gross buildable or the setbacks and kind of get that 3D massing where you want it, we can now adjust some of the income and cost assumptions to work on this ROC. So one of the first things we can adjust is the multifamily income. So maybe for 1 bedroom, we can get it for 1,500. Maybe we can get 2,000, 2,100 for the 2 bedrooms, maybe 2,600 for the 3 bedrooms. Now keep in mind, these values that are pre-populated are sub-market values. So we are bringing in, based on our machine learning, the values for this particular marketplace and area. So, but we always leave things adjustable so you can enter in incomes that you think that might make more sense for your project. So we have another question. Are we able to add our own data sets? Again, another really good question. So to answer your question, we actually also have an enterprise package. So more of a 6-figure package where, yes, you can. We're going to be working with our funds and these customers to bring in their own data sets. There are situations where on the $18,000 a year subscription, we will consider bringing in data sets and working with you. Just keep in mind those data sets will not be exclusive to you. So it just depends on what you're looking at. you're fine with bringing in a data set and allowing the rest of our customers to use it, we could definitely work with you on that. And also, we got to kind of see the what type of data set you're looking to implement. But we've done it before for clients that there's certain data sets they wanted or certain map layers they wanted. They requested it, we evaluated it, and we were able to bring it into the software, no problem. And they were fine with other users seeing it. But again, there's also packages where we are working with exclusivity with certain partners, and they can truly upload any data they have if it's historically accrued over the years and can bring it into our software. So there are different situations. So again, and always feel free if there's anything you want to discuss in more detail beyond just looking at, because we always just look at particular cities and listings each week during these webinars. Feel free to email me at michael@deepblocks.com. We can go through more details, certain packages or certain capabilities of the software beyond what I might be just showcasing in the webinar. But just continue on with this particular scenario. I'm just entering different incomes to see if I can drive this ROC up. We can look at the retail side, see if we can maybe increase the leasing income. Maybe we can get $15 per square foot. And I'll drive it up to just a little bit. We can go down to the cost side. Maybe we can negotiate the purchase price and get this for, 3.8 million. We could also work on different soft costs. Maybe we could go down to 12%. Currently, the hard costs are $210 per square foot. Again, these are sub-market values based on this region, but maybe we can negotiate down to 180. And again, the retail maybe we can get for 150. And then you see, as I can continue to adjust these numbers, you notice the ROC is going up. Obviously, we're trying to keep it within reason, and make this, obviously the whole goal is to make this a practical scenario. It's something that is capable of being developed on this particular site. So, I mean, that's just kind of the premise of Deepblocks, is really to truly use these assumptions. It gives you this flexibility to work this scenario and try to achieve that the best possible ROC with the best combination of uses, and then again to do it at a relatively quick pace. And once you kind of go through your scenarios and go through your assumptions, lastly, what our users do, they'll export the report out to a 4-page PDF. You can customize the report by entering who it's from, who it's going to. You can write your own little summary about this particular project. You can choose your own cover image for the parcel. Upload your company logo and adjust the color palette of the report. I'll just show you a quick stock report. But the reports are extremely helpful because, as I mentioned, you can go through various iterations of a project, and I can and then export out these reports. And now we have multiple reports that we can share with our colleagues and say, here's scenario number 1, and here's the return on cost. Here's scenario number 2, and kind of quickly evaluate what makes the most sense. And again, this is just the tool is just extremely sophisticated and it's very robust in the sense that it can bring you a tremendous amount of data, a lot of intelligence, and really do it at a speed that was not really, we're not able to do prior to a software like this. Usually everything, again, was fragmented. Now everything's converged into one area, into one site. And as I mentioned, like we're relatively young, and we have a tremendous amount of potential. We continue to add more cities with zoning. We're working on new data sets and new data layers and map layers all the time that we want to integrate into the system. We're adding new functionalities routinely, and we basically do weekly releases and updates. And as the previous person asked, about data sets, I mean, we're always constantly studying the next best data set to help our users. So if it's something that's recommended by a user, or again, if it's some type of partnership, we're working with users to bring in their data. There's tremendous amount of flexibility with our software because our foundation is so strong, and the way it's set up, we can add components relatively easily and pretty straightforward. So you'll notice report, here's the 4-pager, shows you property info, zoning summaries, and a stacking plan. There's some demographic trends we're looking at in that front end interface. And there's your 1-year back of the envelope financial analysis. So again, from A to Z, from finding a site location or entering a specific address, like I mentioned, this is 140 Pine Northeast in Atlanta, Pine Street Northeast in Atlanta, Georgia. And once you find that site, you can then go through our Explorer and go through 3D modeling and financial analysis, and again evaluate various scenarios to see what makes the most sense for this particular site. And again, just in a matter of minutes. So I do appreciate everyone joining us this week, and again, appreciate those who keep continuing to return each and every week. Please feel free to reach out to me at michael@deepblocks.com if you have any additional questions or want to go through, again, our software in more detail. If there's any time you want to see a particular city or project, whatever it may be, please feel free to recommend those cities to us, and we will cater our webinar around that as well. So I do appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Take care.